trying, failing, trying again, and failing once more. Over time, this repetition can become exhausting, as if each new attempt only reinforces the idea that nothing will ever work out. You start full of hope, believing that this time will be different. But when the results don't appear, doubt creeps in. Could the problem be me? And this is where the real danger lies. Frustration doesn't come only from external difficulties, but from what we start to believe about ourselves. Each unsuccessful attempt seems to whisper in your ear, "You're not capable. You will never succeed. There's no point in trying anymore." And when these thoughts repeat themselves enough times, something even worse happens. You start to believe them. Motivation fades, energy drains, and hope becomes more and more distant. The weight of these emotions can be paralyzing. After all, how long can someone keep fighting without seeing results? But what if I told you that this pain doesn't mean you're failing? What if, in reality, this feeling was a sign of something deeper, something ROGERS saw as essential for our growth? Before you give up, you need to understand one thing. The problem may not be in your attempts, but in the way you are interpreting your journey, and that can change everything. Trying, failing, trying again, and failing once more. At first, you still hold on to hope. You tell yourself it's just a matter of time, that you just need to keep pushing a little longer. But as days, months, or even years pass without significant change, frustration starts to weigh on you. Each failed attempt feels like a cruel reminder that nothing ever works out for you. And little by little, that voice in your head begins to whisper, "Maybe I'm just not good enough." That thought is like a seed planted in your mind. At first, it may seem like nothing more than a passing frustration, a moment of weakness. But the more you tell yourself that you never succeed, that things always go wrong, that maybe you're not capable, the more those words solidify into a belief. You start looking at every experience in your life for proof that it's true. Small mistakes that once meant nothing now become evidence of your failure. You stop believing that you can change, and without realizing it, you enter a dangerous cycle. The less you believe in yourself, the less you truly try, and the less you try, the more it seems like you'll never succeed. And the worst part, you feel like no one truly understands. People tell you to just try harder, be more positive, never give up. But they don't see what's happening inside you. They don't feel the weight of every failed attempt. They don't know what it's like to wake up each day, carrying the feeling that you're falling behind. You feel like you're screaming on the inside, but the world keeps moving as if nothing is happening. But what if I told you that this pain doesn't mean you're failing? What if, in reality, this feeling was a sign of something deeper, something ROGERS saw as essential for our growth? Maybe the problem isn't in your effort. Maybe what's holding you back isn't a lack of attempts, but the way you're interpreting your journey. You may be carrying a weight that was never yours to bear, and understanding that can change everything. If you've tried everything and still feel stuck, maybe it's time to look at this situation from a different angle. ROGERS believed that many of our deepest struggles come from a profound disconnection between who we truly are and who we think we're supposed to be. In other words, maybe the reason you feel like you can't move forward isn't a lack of effort, but the invisible pressure to fit into an idea of success that doesn't even reflect what you truly want. From a young age, we're taught that we need to achieve certain things to be considered successful. Be productive, always improve, reach standards that we often don't even question. But the real question is, are these goals truly yours? Or deep down, have you been fighting to meet expectations that were imposed on you? ROGERS spoke about the incongruence between the real self and the ideal self. The real self is who you are right now, with your flaws, strengths, fears, and authentic dreams. The ideal self, on the other hand, is the perfect version of yourself that you think you need to become in order to feel worthy. When the gap between these two becomes too wide, silent suffering emerges. You feel like you're never good enough because you're constantly chasing a version of yourself that seems unattainable. Now think about this. What if this feeling of failure doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, but rather that you're trying to be someone you're not? What if, instead of failing, you were simply exhausting yourself trying to follow a path that was never truly yours in the first place? Maybe you're not stuck because you're not trying hard enough. Maybe you're stuck because you've been trying the wrong way, the way others expect from you, not the way that actually makes sense for your life. And if that's the case, here's the good news. You don't have to keep repeating this cycle. There is a way out of this suffocating feeling. But it starts with something you may have never truly tried before. Stopping the pressure to be someone you're not, and finally accepting who you really are. What if the feeling of not succeeding didn't mean you were failing, but rather that you were in the process of changing? Carl Rogers believed that real growth is not a straight path, but a constant movement between discoveries and challenges. The problem is that we've been conditioned to see only the final result. If we haven't reached it yet, we assume we're stuck. But that's not true. Think of a seed. When it's underground, no one can see what's happening. On the surface, it looks like nothing is changing. But internally, it is preparing itself, growing roots, gaining strength until it is ready to break through the soil. The same thing is happening with you. The frustration you feel right now doesn't mean you're standing still. On the contrary, it means that something inside you is seeking transformation. The big mistake is believing that just because you haven't seen results yet, your effort was in vain. But every growth process has invisible phases. Small changes are happening, even if you don't notice them yet. You are learning, evolving, adjusting your course. The problem isn't that you're not making progress, it's expecting evolution to happen overnight. Rogers said that true growth happens when we allow ourselves to be authentic without demanding immediate perfection. So instead of asking yourself, why haven't I succeeded yet? Maybe the right question is, what have I already learned so far? Real progress may not always be visible, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. What if the real problem wasn't your ability, but the way you measure what it means to succeed? From an early age, we are taught to see success as something fixed, reaching a goal, achieving a specific result, proving something to others. But is that really the only valid way to measure progress? Carl Rogers believed that human growth cannot be reduced to external achievements. He argued that true fulfillment happens when we live in alignment with who we truly are, not just when we reach predefined milestones. Think about it. Have you really failed? Or are you comparing yourself to a rigid idea of success that doesn't even make sense for your life? Many times we feel frustrated not because we are failing, but because we are trapped in unrealistic expectations, whether they are our own or imposed by others. Maybe your progress is already happening, but you don't recognize it because you're only focusing on what's still missing. But what if you shifted your perspective? What if, instead of asking, why haven't I gotten there yet? You asked yourself, where was I before and where am I now? Rogers said that growth is not a destination, but a continuous process. It's not about reaching a final point, but about staying in motion. So, have you really never succeeded? Or have you already accomplished far more than you realize? If there is one thing that can truly change your journey, it's the way you see yourself. Carl Rogers believed that genuine growth only happens when we allow ourselves to be who we truly are, without the constant pressure to meet unrealistic expectations. The problem is that most of us have learned to demand perfection from ourselves before even allowing ourselves to move forward. How many times have you postponed something because you felt you weren't ready yet? How many times have you frozen in place because you thought you needed to be better before taking the next step? This creates a cruel cycle. You never feel like you're enough, so you never move forward. But Rogers teaches us that acceptance is not the end of growth. It is the starting point. Accepting yourself doesn't mean giving up on improvement. It means recognizing that you already have value right now, regardless of the results you've achieved. When you allow yourself to be who you truly are, without punishing yourself for not being perfect, something incredible happens. Fear diminishes, self-confidence grows, and progress becomes natural. So instead of asking yourself, how can I be perfect? Maybe the more important question is, how can I accept myself and keep evolving? The way out of the cycle of frustration isn't to push yourself harder. It's to start seeing yourself with more kindness. That's where real change begins. After so many attempts and frustrations, it's natural for motivation to start fading. You begin with determination, believing that this time will be different. But when the results don't come as expected, something inside you crumbles. Little by little, enthusiasm turns into exhaustion. What once felt like a dream now feels like an endless battle. But what if motivation isn't something that simply disappears? What if instead it's just buried under the weight of so many pressures and expectations? ROGERS teaches us that true motivation doesn't come from external pressure, but from a genuine connection with who we truly are. The problem is that when we spend too much time trying to be something we're not, motivation stops being a natural drive and becomes a suffocating obligation. Maybe you're not exhausted because you've tried too hard, but because you've been trying the wrong way. Maybe instead of asking yourself, why can't I do this? The right question is, what part of me still believes I need to prove something? Motivation isn't something that needs to be forced. It reappears when you free yourself from the need to be perfect, when you stop fighting against yourself and start acting from a place that truly makes sense to you. Deep down, what you need isn't more effort, it's more clarity. When you stop demanding so much from yourself and simply allow yourself to be, the energy to move forward returns naturally. So before you give up, take a deep breath. You're not unmotivated, you're just overwhelmed. And there is a way to lighten that burden. If there is one thing ROGERS teaches us, it's that true growth happens when we give ourselves permission to be who we truly are. Throughout your life, you may have believed that you would only be worthy of happiness once you reached a certain goal, when you became better, stronger, more successful. But what if that very idea is what's been holding you back? You don't need to become someone else to be valid. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The simple fact that you are here, trying, seeking to understand what you feel and find your way, is already a sign of strength. If you feel exhausted, maybe it's not because you're failing, but because you've been carrying the weight of expectations that were never truly yours. The truth is, you're not standing still. You're not lost. You are in motion, even if you can't see it yet. And every small choice you make to better understand yourself, to respect your own timing, and to recognize your achievements is proof that your path is still being built. Maybe the big breakthrough doesn't happen in an instant. Maybe it's already happening, right now, inside you. And when you realize this, you'll see that you've never been as close as you are now to finally moving forward. So don't give up on yourself. You've already come a long way, and the best part of your journey may only be beginning. If this message resonated with you, share in the comments what impacted you the most in this video. And if you want to continue this journey of self-discovery, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next content. See you in the next video.